It is a huge change. Look, I think when Paul Wagner broke this story, it's hard for any of us to imagine it would have ended this way. It's hard to underestimate just how big an impact this will have. 13 people on administrative leave, the DC police way of saying they're on their way towards termination if DC police leadership has their way in all of this. All of it connected to how they handled crime statistics, reported crime to the people of DC. And that's a basic function of the police department. Possibly manipulated crime to appear that crime was lower in the district. These 13 people, we don't have their names from the department leadership, but 4 of them are high-level officials who were given termination papers yesterday. 3 of them worked very closely with former Chief Pam Smith to run this department. From News 4 sources, it includes the second in command under Pam Smith, 1 assistant chief who was in charge of patrol in half this city, and 2 commanders for police districts around the district. Interim Chief Carroll would give us the number, but he wouldn't give us names and very few details. No details on this investigation. He said to protect what he calls a personnel matter. But you can imagine there are an awful lot of people in D.C. who believe this is far larger than that. An issue of trust in the department, the culture within the department, the leadership of the department, an issue of how crime victims were treated in D.C. The interim chief didn't tell us how long it went on, how it happened, whether any of these 13 people worked together or whether they felt pressure from leadership. He didn't even tell us how many crimes may have been manipulated in all of this. As you can imagine, there is still so much more to explain.
We don't want to minimize any crime. Obviously, we want to make sure that crimes are appropriately classified. We'll continue to work with that, making sure officers have the appropriate classification. Regardless of the classification of the crime, we want to make sure that all crimes are appropriately investigated.
Do you trust crime statistics every morning?
I do. We use crime statistics every day to help us with deployment across the city. I do have confidence in those numbers.
Look, and as the interim chief, he's got to have confidence in the department he leads right now. Would have liked to have heard a little bit more about why and how. He did say he's going to retrain D.C. police officers in how to appropriately categorize crime. A lot more to come, hopefully, on that. We did hear from the head of the D.C. Police Officers Union in a statement before this news conference. And in part, Gregory Pemberton said the command staff officials responsible for this betrayal must be held accountable. Not just for the sake of the thousands of dedicated MPD officers they undermine, but for the residents of the District of Columbia who deserve honest leadership and real public safety. The corruption, that statement continues, that endangered lives, eroded trust, and allowed shooters, robbers, and predators to evade justice cannot be tolerated. Look, this is not going away. The head of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, has demanded a copy of the report that the department would not let us see today. And according to Interim Chief Carroll, Comer does not yet have a copy of this. He said they're still communicating with the committee about what they're entitled to get. You can imagine James Comer may have a different view of what he's entitled to than what department leadership may. But I think there's an awful lot of people across the city who have an awful lot more questions about what's going to change and what created this problem in the first place. It is a huge level of discipline, Jim and Sean.
Ted, I'm just curious. We talked about those 13 high-ranking individuals who are facing discipline. We know some people were fired. Any indication that we could see even more fallout, like more discipline, more firings because of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, anything is possible. The sources I've talked to suggest that this is over for now, that the 13 who have been given their termination papers is probably all we're going to see from this. Look, it's a long process. They are entitled to appeals, and some of them could get their jobs back.
All right. We know this is far from over, especially with Congress digging around in this as well. Ted Oberg, we appreciate the work you guys are doing.